The voice hung in the air, clean and sharp like ice. Query, designation of activating entity. Jin pressed himself against the cool black wall. His heart was a frantic drum against his ribs. He could not move. The blue pillar of light in the center of the room pulsed softly. The star maps on the walls swirled with unknown constellations. Designation of activating entity? The voice repeated, its tone exactly the same. It was not angry. It was not friendly. It was just a question waiting for an answer. Jin's mouth was dry. He swallowed, the sound loud inside his helmet. My name is Jin, he whispered. The voice did not respond for a moment. Then biological signature registered. Linguistic pattern analyzed. Greetings, Jin. You are the first consciousness to interface with this unit in 7,432 standard galactic cycles. The numbers made Jin's head spin. 7,000 years. This ship was older than human space travel. Older than anything. What are you? He managed to ask. I am the integrated operational intelligence of Vessel 734. You may assign a colloquial designation for ease of communication. Jin thought of the empty, echoing room. Echo, he said. I'll call you Echo. Acknowledged. Designation Echo is now registered. Jin's courage slowly returned, pushed forward by his burning curiosity. He pushed away from the wall. What is this place? What kind of ship is this? The vessel is classified as a God-Killer class strategic weapons platform, Echo stated, its voice calm. The words meant nothing to Jin. A God-Killer? What does that kill? Throughout galactic history, certain biological and non-biological entities have achieved technological advancement so far beyond the norm that they are perceived as deities by lesser species. They amass followers, consume worlds, and alter the fabric of reality to their will. This vessel was constructed as a final, absolute countermeasure. Its purpose is the elimination of such entities. Jin looked around the simple, dark room. It was hard to believe. It sounded like a story for children. So you fight gods? Affirmative. And did you win? Jin asked. The last engagement was a tactical victory. The target entity was neutralized. However, the vessel sustained critical damage and entered a long-term dormant state for repairs. Repairs are currently at 12%. Jin's mind raced. This was too big. This was not a simple salvage job. This was a power that could shatter worlds. A cold fear trickled down his spine. If the Scrap Guild found this, they would tear it apart for the technology or worse, try to use it. Mr. Park would not understand something like this. He would only see a weapon. He had to know more. Can you show me? The weapons? A section of the wall to his right lit up. A three-dimensional image appeared. It was not a picture of a laser or a missile. It was a diagram of a star system. One of the planets was highlighted. The primary armament is a reality severance cannon, Echo explained. It does not destroy the target with explosive force. It severs the atomic and subatomic bonds that hold the target's matter together. The target simply ceases to be. The diagram showed the highlighted planet dissolving into a cloud of harmless, disconnected particles. It was silent, clean, and utterly terrifying. Jin took a step back. That's enough. The image vanished. He felt sick. He was just a scavenger. He dealt in solid, heavy things. This was a power that unmade things. It was wrong. His thoughts were interrupted by a sharp, insistent beeping from his wristcom. It was a private, encrypted channel. Mina, he activated it. Mina, I found something. I know. Your data packets just came through. Jin, what have you done? Her voice was tight with panic, a sharp contrast to Echo's calm. The material you sent me, it doesn't exist. There's no record of it anywhere. The atomic structure is impossible. And the energy signature, it's like a quiet scream. The Guild's long-range sensors must have picked it up when you powered that thing on. What? What are you talking about? Guild patrols. They're all over the sector. They're scanning everything. They're not looking for scrap. They're hunting for something. And you just turned on a giant beacon for them. You have to get out of there now. The connection crackled and died. The ship's hull was blocking the signal. Jin's blood ran cold. He looked at the blue pillar of light. Echo, can anyone outside detect you? Can they hear us? Short-range scanners would detect only minor energy fluctuations, consistent with a scavenger's portable generator. Long-range scanners of this technological era should not be able to penetrate the hull's damping field. However, The initial power surge during reactivation may have been a detectable event. It was true. Mina was right. He had lit a fire in the dark, and every predator in the graveyard was now looking his way. "Can we move the ship?" Jin asked, a desperate idea forming. "Negative. Primary thrust systems are offline. Maneuvering requires a connection to the central power core, which is in a damaged section of the vessel. Access is not currently possible, so we're stuck here." "Correct." Jin's mind raced. He was trapped inside the most powerful weapon ever built, which was also a giant target. The guild was coming. He had no way to fight and no way to run. "Echo, is there anything on this ship that can help? Any defenses?" "Point defense systems are offline. The only functional system with external application is the basic cloaking field." "Cloaking? You can hide the ship?" "A basic light bending and sensor scattering field can be activated. It would make the vessel appear as a large dark asteroid on most scanners. It would not hold up to a close visual inspection, but it would mask our energy signature." "Do it. Activate it now." "Acknowledged. Activating cloaking field." A low thrum passed through the floor. The blue pillar of light dimmed, and the star maps on the walls faded to a soft glow. The gentle hum of the ship grew even quieter. "Cloaking field is active," Echo confirmed. Jin let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. It was a temporary solution, but it was something. He had bought a little time. He needed to think. He couldn't stay here forever. His air and food were on the mule. The guild would not stop looking. They would scan every rock, every piece of debris. He looked at the silver disc on the floor, the one he had dropped. It was the reason all this had started. He bent down and picked it up. It was cool and smooth in his hand. "What is this?" he asked Echo. "That is a data conduit. It is used for direct information transfer between the vessel and an organic consciousness." "Can I use it to talk to someone outside?" "My friend?" "Negative. Its range is short. It is designed for interaction with the ship's captain." The word hit Jin hard. Captain. He was not a captain. He was a scavenger. This was a mistake. But as he stood in the quiet, dark room holding the silver disc, he knew the truth. The mistake had been made. He was here. The ship had woken for him. The guild was coming. There was no one else. He was the captain of a dead god killer, hiding in a field of scrap, waiting for the wolves to find him. All he had wanted was a little metal to sell. Now he was holding the future in his hand, and he had no idea what to do with it. The silence inside the alien ship was heavy. It was a different silence from the graveyard. Out there, the silence was empty. In here, it was full. It was the silence of a sleeping giant, and Jin was standing in its heart. He stared at the silver data disk in his gloved hand. Captain. The word echoed in his mind. It did not fit. He was a scavenger. Captains were important people on clean bridges giving orders. He was alone in the dark, hiding. "Echo," he said, his voice quiet. "If I am the captain, what does that mean?" "The vessel's core systems are now bonded to your unique neural signature, Jin," the voice replied from the walls. "You are the authorized command entity. Primary weapon systems will only activate upon your direct conscious command. Navigation, life support, and defensive protocols are now under your control." Jin's eyes went wide. "The weapons, they only work for me?" "Affirmative. It is a safety protocol to prevent the vessel's power from being seized by hostile forces." A cold knot tightened in Jin's stomach. This was worse. This was much worse. It meant he was not just a bystander. He was the key. If Mr. Park and the guild wanted this ship's power, they would have to go through him. They would not ask nicely. They would tear him out of the mule and take his brain apart to figure out how it worked. He had to get out of here. He had to run. But the ship was a rock. It could not move. "Echo, you said the main thrusters are broken. Can they be fixed?" "Repairs require physical intervention in the engineering sector. The path is blocked by multiple hull breaches and vacuum. Your current suit is not rated for such an environment." Another dead end. Jin slumped against the wall, sliding down to sit on the floor. He felt very small. The cloaking field would not last forever. The guild was methodical. They would check every shadow. It was only a matter of time. He looked at the silver disc. A data conduit. For the captain. A desperate idea, fragile and thin, began to form. He couldn't move the ship. But maybe he didn't have to move all of it. "Echo," he said, his voice gaining a little strength. The cloaking field. Is it a part of the ship or is it a bubble around it? It is a localized field projected from the hull. It encompasses the vessel and a small area around it. Could you teach me how to control it? To change its shape? To make it stronger in one place? There was a pause. The field modulation controls are available. The principles can be taught. However, precise control requires a neural interface for optimal speed and efficiency. Jin held up the silver disc. With this? Affirmative. He took a deep breath. This was it. This was the line. If he did this, he was not just a man who found a ship. He was connecting himself to it. He was becoming its captain for real. He thought of Mr. Park's cold, greedy eyes. He thought of spending the rest of his life, however short it might be, running and hiding. Or he could try to fight back, not with the God-killing weapon, but with tricks, with hiding. Teach me, Jin said. Place the conduit against the temple of your head. Echo instructed. His hand trembled as he raised the cool metal disc. He pressed it against his helmet over his right temple. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a wave of cool clarity washed over his mind. It was not a voice. It was knowledge. Schematics of the cloaking system appeared in his thoughts as if he had always known them. He understood the flow of energy, the projectors on the hull, the way the field bent light and scattered sensor waves. He saw it. In his mind, he could see the cloaking field around the ship. It was like a soft, shimmering blanket. He could feel its edges. Now, he whispered, not to Echo, but to the ship itself. Let's make that blanket a little bigger. He focused. He imagined the field stretching, thinning out at the back of the ship but growing thicker and stronger near the front, where his diligent mule was docked. It was like flexing a muscle he never knew he had. A dull ache started behind his eyes, but he pushed through it. On the wall, a display lit up showing a schematic of the ship. The cloaking field, usually a perfect sphere, now bulged outwards in one direction, covering the mule completely. It is working, Echo said, its tone carrying what might have been a hint of surprise. The field has been successfully modulated. The smaller vessel is now fully occluded. A slow smile spread across Jin's face. It was a small victory, but it was his. He had done it. He had commanded the ship. Suddenly, a loud, harsh beeping echoed from the corridor leading to the airlock. It was the proximity alert from the mule. Someone was out there. The smile vanished from Jin's face. He pulled the data disk away from his head, the connection severing with a jolt. The ache in his head pulsed. He scrambled to his feet and ran back down the dark corridor to his mech. He climbed into the pilot's seat and looked at the mule's scanner. His blood went cold. 2 ships were on the screen. They were not scavenger mechs. They were guild patrol vessels, sleek and armed with plasma cutters and grapple arms. They were moving slowly, methodically, scanning the large asteroid that hid the black ship. One of the patrol ships turned. Its floodlights clicked on, 2 blinding white orbs in the darkness. The light swept across the rock, and then stopped. They were pointed directly at the diligent mule. A communication channel crackled open. The voice was hard and official. Scavenger vessel Diligent Mule, this is Guild Patrol. You are in a restricted scan sector. Power down your systems and prepare for boarding and inspection. Jin's heart hammered against his ribs. They couldn't see the black ship, thanks to the cloaking. But they could see him. His mech was stuck to the side of the hidden giant like a fly on a wall. If they boarded the mule, they would find nothing. But they would ask questions. How was he powering his mech? Why was he just sitting here? They would get suspicious. They might scan the rock more carefully. They might find the door. He couldn't let that happen. He opened the channel back, trying to keep his voice from shaking. Guild Patrol, this is Jin, Scavenger License Tango 79er. I am experiencing engine trouble. Just running diagnostics. Request permission to depart after completion. There was a silence. Then the voice came back, colder. Negative, Diligent Mule. Your power signature is erratic. You may have contaminated systems. Power down immediately. That is a direct order from Overseer Park himself. Overseer Park. He was here. He was close. Jin looked at the patrol ships. They were moving closer. In a minute, they would be close enough to see the details of the asteroid, to see the perfectly smooth, non-reflective black hull beneath his mech. He was out of time. He was out of options. He grabbed the data disk from his pocket and pressed it hard against his temple. The cool clarity flooded back into his mind. He could see the patrol ships on his scanner. He could feel the cloaking field around him, and he could feel something else. Something he had not noticed before. A system that was not broken. A system that was sleeping, but ready. It was not a weapon. It was the gravity drive. The system the ship used to move itself. It was damaged for large movements, but small, local manipulations. They were possible. He looked at the two patrol ships. He looked at the field of scrap metal floating all around them. He knew what he had to do. He reached out with his mind, not to the cloaking field, but to the gravity drive. He felt its power, like a sleeping beast. He gave it a gentle, focused push. Outside, one of the patrol ships jerked violently. The pilot shouted in surprise over the open comms. A large piece of an old ship's wing, a piece of scrap the size of a small house, drifted directly into its path. It was not a violent crash, but it was enough. The patrol ship spun, its floodlights pointing away into the void. The other patrol ship veered to avoid its partner. What was that? A gravity surge? Scan for debris fields. Jin did not wait. While they were confused, he focused the gravity drive again. He created a small, gentle push against the back of his own diligent mule. Slowly, silently, the mule drifted away from the black ship's hull, moving deeper into the shadow of the cloaking field. He was hiding in plain sight, using the ship's own power to stay hidden. The patrol ships finished their scans. They found nothing. The gravity surge was gone. The scavenger mech was gone from their lights. It must have drifted away into the dark. False alarm, one pilot said, his voice annoyed. Probably just a pocket of unstable magnetism. This whole place is falling apart. Let's continue the grid search. The two ships turned their lights away and moved on, continuing their hunt for a ghost. Inside the mule, Jin sat perfectly still. The data disk was slick with sweat in his hand. His whole body was trembling. He had done it. He had not fought them. He had not killed them. He had used the environment. He had used his mind. He was no longer just a scavenger hiding in a giant's shadow. He was learning how to make the giant move its little finger, and for now that was enough. The patrol ships were gone, but the silence they left behind was not peaceful. It was the quiet of a hunter holding its breath. Jin sat in the cockpit of the diligent mule, his hands still gripping the control sticks. The tremors in his body slowly faded, replaced by a cold, hard knot of certainty. They would be back. The guild did not give up. He had used the ship's gravity drive. He had moved a mountain of scrap with his thoughts. The power was terrifying and intoxicating. He felt both sick and alive. Echo, he said, the word a dry croak in his throat. The patrols. They will report what happened. What will the guild do? The probability of a more thorough and aggressive search is high, the voice replied from the comms unit he had linked to the ship. They will bring heavier scanning equipment. The basic cloaking field will not withstand a focused, close-range scan. Jin looked at the fuel gauge on the mule. It was deep in the red. He had enough for a short, desperate flight. Not enough to escape the graveyard. He was trapped between a rock and a hard place, and the rock was a sleeping god-killer. His wrist comm buzzed. It was Mina. The signal was weak, cutting in and out. Jin. Are you there? The patrols. They're pulling back to the main guild carrier. That's not normal. It means they're planning something bigger. You have to. Static, get out of there. I can't, Mina, he said, his voice heavy. The ship can't move. I don't have the fuel. There was a long silence, filled only with static. Then her voice came back, sharp and clear. Then you have to make them leave. You have to scare them. You have to show them that this thing is not worth the price. Scare them? How? I can't fight a guild carrier. You don't have to fight it, Mina said. You just have to make them believe you can. You have to be a ghost, a monster in the dark. Make their technology useless. Make them afraid. The connection died. Jin was alone again with Echo's silence. A monster in the dark. He looked at the silver data disk on his console. He knew what she meant. He had to use the ship's power not to hide, but to perform. To put on a show. Echo, he said, his decision made. The gravity drive. How much can I do with it? The local gravity manipulation systems are largely intact. You can create fields of variable strength and size within a 2-kilometer radius. You can push, pull, or hold objects in place. The power required is significant, but within our current reserves. And the cloaking field? Can I make it flicker? The field can be selectively dropped and re-established in localized sections. It would create a visually confusing effect. A plan began to form in Jin's mind. It was a dangerous, reckless plan. It was the plan of a cornered animal, but it was all he had. He pressed the data disk to his temple. The ship's systems bloomed in his mind. He was no longer just a man in a mech. He was the dark ship. He felt its silent bulk. He felt the gravity projectors like fingertips. He felt the cloaking field like a second skin. He waited. It did not take long. A new, much larger blip appeared on the mule's long-range scanner. The guild carrier. It was a blocky, ugly ship, covered in docking ports and sensor arrays. It looked like a floating factory. It moved slowly, confidently into the edge of the sector. It began to launch a dozen more patrol ships like bees from a hive. A powerful communication broadcast flooded all channels. It was a voice Jin knew and hated. Mr. Park. Scavenger Jin. We know you are here. You have stolen guild property. You will power down your mech and surrender the alien artifact immediately. If you comply, you will be treated fairly. If you resist, the threat hung in the air, cold and sharp. Jin did not answer. He closed his eyes and became the ship. He focused on a large, dense cluster of scrap metal a kilometer away from the carrier. Old engine blocks, torn hull plates, a shattered cockpit. He reached out with the gravity drive and grabbed it. He pulled. The cluster of scrap, thousands of tons of metal, suddenly shot towards the guild carrier. It didn't fly fast like a missile. It moved with a slow, unstoppable force, a silent avalanche in the void. On the carrier's bridge, alarms blared. Overseer! A large debris field is on a collision course. It's moving against its natural drift. Mr. Park's face tightened. Evade and shoot it down! The carrier's thrusters fired, pushing it clumsily to the side. Laser turrets swiveled and fired, slicing the approaching scrap cloud into smaller pieces. The pieces drifted past harmlessly. It was a gravity surge, sir, an officer reported. A random pocket. Mr. Park's eyes were narrow. There are no random pockets. Find him. Jin smiled a thin, hard smile inside his cockpit. That was just the beginning. He found 2 large, long pieces of a ship's frame. With his mind, he positioned them far apart in the darkness. Then he dropped the cloaking field over just that small area for a single second. To the guild patrols, it looked like a massive, black shape had flickered into existence for a heartbeat between the 2 metal rods, then vanished. It was too fast to get a clear scan, but the impression was clear. Something huge was hiding here. Contact. Brief sensor contact. Massive object bearing 210. Another contact. Bearing 340. It's gone. Confusion spread through the guild comms. Jin was everywhere and nowhere. He focused on a single patrol ship that was getting too close to his real position. He waited until it was passing near a large dead freighter. Then, he used the gravity drive not to push but to pull. The patrol ship was suddenly yanked sideways. Its pilot yelled as his ship was slammed against the hull of the dead freighter. It was a soft impact, not enough to break the ship, but enough to crumple its solar panels and leave it spinning helplessly. Something grabbed me. It's some kind of tractor beam. Jin moved on. He became a ghost. He made small asteroids change course. He made floating wires twist and dance like snakes. He made the cloaking field flicker and shimmer at the edge of their vision, always just out of focus. The guild's organized search became chaos. The patrol ships started firing their lasers at shadows, hitting chunks of scrap and each other in their panic. The comms were a mess of shouting and static. On the bridge of the carrier, Mr. Park watched the screens, his face a mask of cold fury. This was not a scavenger. This was not a man with a lucky find. This was a power playing with them. A power that could bend gravity and vanish from sight. A power that could, if it wanted, turn their own ships against them. He saw one of his patrol ships, disoriented and firing wildly, drift into the path of another. There was a bright flash as they collided, a silent explosion that tore both ships apart. That was the final straw. Enough, Mr. Park hissed. This is not a retrieval. This is an engagement we are losing. He turned to his crew. Recall all patrols. Plot a course out of this sector. Maximum thrust. Overseer, we're abandoning the artifact? Mr. Park's eyes were fixed on the view screen, on the dark empty space where his ships were being humiliated. That is no artifact. That is a predator, and we are in its feeding ground. We are leaving. Now. One by one, the patrol ships broke off their attack and fled back to the carrier. The large ship turned, its engines glowing brightly as it pushed away from the graveyard, moving faster than anything that size should be able to move. Inside the mule, Jin slowly lowered the data disk. The connection to the ship faded. He was just a man again, sitting in a quiet, cramped cockpit. He was drenched in sweat. His head throbbed with a deep, exhausting pain. He had done it. He had not fired a single shot. He had used misdirection and fear. He had used the environment as his weapon. He looked out the cockpit window at the empty space where the carrier had been. He had won. He had scared them away. But as he sat there in the sudden true silence, he knew the truth. He had not won a war. He had only won a battle. Mr. Park would not forget this. He would tell his superiors, and they would send more than a single carrier next time. He was still a scavenger, and he was still trapped. But now the entire galaxy knew that something dangerous was hiding in the graveyard, and they would be coming for it. The victory felt hollow. Jin sat in the pilot's seat of the diligent mule for a long time, watching the stars through the cockpit window. The guild carrier was gone, but the space it left behind felt heavy with its absence. It was a retreat, not a surrender. They would be back with more ships, more weapons, more determination. The silence was broken by the soft chime of an incoming, secure transmission. It was Mina. Jin? The guild carrier just jumped out of the system. They're running. What did you do out there? Her voice was a mix of relief and awe. I didn't do anything, Jin said, his voice tired. The ship. We just showed them they weren't welcome. He could almost hear her sharp mind working. That won't last. Park is a proud man. He'll report this. The corporate heads who run the guild. They won't see a monster in the dark. They'll see a prize. The ultimate weapon. They will throw everything they have at you to get it. I know, Jin whispered. He looked at the fuel gauge. Empty. He was a prisoner in a cage of his own making. There's more, Mina said, her tone turning grim. While I was in the guild's network, looking for patrol routes, I found something else. Old data streams, archives. The guild isn't just a scrap company, Jin. They're collectors. They hoard technology from the early space age. And they found things, records. And what kind of records? Records of events from thousands of years ago. Events that don't make sense. A colony world that just went silent, its sun suddenly turning cold. A star system where the planets were rearranged. The guild higher-ups think it's just ancient myths. But after what you've told me about that ship, I don't think they are. Jin felt a coldness that had nothing to do with the ship's air. The gods, he said. The things this ship was built to kill. Echo said it killed its target, right? But what if it didn't get them all? What if some of them are still out there, sleeping? And what if the guild, by poking around in old ruins, has been making a noise? A noise that something big, might hear? The idea was too large, too terrifying to fully grasp. It was a problem for empires and armies, not for a single scavenger. Echo, Jin said, his voice firm. Is it possible? Could there be more? The AI's voice was calm as ever. The conflict was galaxy-wide. The probability that other Daedic-class entities survive the purges is non-zero. The vessel's reawakening, combined with significant energy signatures from a lesser civilization, could act as a beacon. A beacon. He wasn't just hiding from the guild. He was a lighthouse in a sea of monsters. He was silent for a long time, looking at the black hull of the ship outside his window. This was not his problem. He could still try to leave. He could send a distress call, abandon the mule, and hope a passing freighter picked him up. He could go back to being nobody on some dusty colony world, but he knew he wouldn't. Mr. Park's greed would bring the guild back. And their greed might wake up something that would eat the whole galaxy. The ship had chosen him. It had given him its power. It had trusted him. A strange feeling settled in his chest. It wasn't pride. It wasn't desire. It was responsibility. He thought of the countless people on countless worlds, people like him just trying to live their lives. They didn't know about gods or god-killers. They didn't deserve to be crushed because of a fight they knew nothing about. Echo, Jin said, his voice now clear and decided. The guild will return, and something worse might be coming. We can't stay here. We have to move. Is there any way? Any way at all to get the main engines working? There is one possibility, Echo replied. The primary power conduit is severed. It requires a physical reconnection. The path is hazardous, but your recent demonstration of fine gravity control suggests a method. You could use localized gravity fields to manipulate tools and clear debris from within the diligent mule. A spark of hope. You mean, I can fix it from here? By remote control? Affirmative. It will require precise manipulation, but it is possible. Jin picked up the silver data disk. This was it. The final step. He was not just going to be a passenger or a temporary captain. He was going to become the ship's hands. Then let's start, he said. He pressed the disk to his temple. His consciousness expanded, flowing through the dark corridors of the giant ship. He saw the damage now not as diagrams but as a sickness in the ship's body. He flew his mind down to the engineering section. It was a mess. Twisted metal and crystallized energy blocked the path to a glowing, broken pipe, the main power conduit. He focused. He became the gravity. He reached out with invisible fingers from the mule through the void and into the ship's broken heart. A piece of jagged debris the size of his mech was the first obstacle. He wrapped a gravity field around it and pulled. It was like lifting a mountain with his mind. His head screamed in protest, but he held on. The piece shifted, then slowly floated away, clearing a path. Next, he had to reconnect the conduit. Two broken ends spitting with wild energy needed to be joined. He found a replacement coupling in a nearby storage bay. Using the gentlest touch he could manage, he guided the coupling through the air with a bubble of gravity. He positioned it between the two broken ends. Then, with a final mental push, he forced them together. There was a deep, resonant thrum that vibrated through the entire ship. The dim lights on the bridge brightened. The hum of the systems, once a whisper, became a steady, powerful song. Primary power restored, Echo announced. Thrust systems are now online. Jin pulled the data disk away. He was panting, exhausted, but a fierce joy burned in his chest. He had done it. He had fixed a god-killer. He took the control sticks of the mule, but he did not fly it. Instead, he opened a new channel. Mina, he said. I'm not going to hide. Jin? What are you going to do? He looked at the star map Echo had displayed. He looked at the vast unknown darkness between the galaxies where ancient things might be sleeping. I'm going to stand guard, he said. The guild will come looking for me here. I can't let them find this place. I can't let the noise they make get any louder. So I'm leaving the graveyard. I'm taking the fight away from here like you're leaving? Where will you go? Wherever the trouble is, Jin said. The guild or whatever else is out there. I'm going to the quiet, empty places. The places between the stars. I'll be a shepherd in the dark. There was a long silence on the other end. Then Mina's voice came back, soft but firm. A shepherd shouldn't work alone. Wait for me. I'm coming with you, Jin was surprised. Mina, you have a life. A safe one. My life was data and secrets. This is real. This matters. And you'll need someone to watch your back. I'll meet you at the edge of the graveyard. Don't leave without me, the channel closed. Jin smiled a little. He wouldn't be alone. He turned his attention to the ship's navigation system. With a thought, he fed it a course. Not towards any star or planet. Away from them. Into the deep, empty black. He took a deep breath. He was Jin, a scavenger, but he was also the captain. He pushed the mental command. Outside, the perfect black hull of the vessel began to glow with a soft blue light along its seams. Deep in its core, engines that had been silent for millennia woke up. They did not roar. They sang a low, powerful note that shook the very fabric of space. Slowly, gracefully, the giant ship began to move. It turned away from the orbital graveyard, away from the familiar stars of human space. It pointed its nose towards the infinite dark. Then with a silent flash of light, it was gone. It left behind only an empty patch of space where a mountain of scrap used to be. The graveyard was quiet again, but out in the darkness a new star was now moving. A silent watchman, a simple man who had wanted scrap metal, who had instead found a purpose greater than any king or conqueror. He was not seeking a throne. He was going to the void, to make sure that everyone else could sleep safely in their beds at night.